As a child, all I wanted was to make my mother happy. She was my beautiful mama, but she always seemed sad. Later, she withdrew deeper into herself. She started calling herself a survivor. She would never explain why. It wasn't until she died that I finally understood. I found her secret letters, and what a story they told, one of despair and deception. This was my mother, Maria Brick. Her parents called her their golden daughter. Beautiful, spoilt, and totally unprepared for what was about to happen. In her letters, I found out that at 17, she was abducted from her school in Ukraine by the Nazis, stuffed into a cattle car, and sent to Germany. That's when she was born, right?
Yes, it's date of birth.
I had to know more about Mama's life, so I went to Germany.
Direction of the Polish primary school.
I needed to find the truth of what happened to her because I knew it had shaped my life. Mama was brought here in February 1943. She got off the train and she walked along this original cobblestone path to the town of Würzburg, where she began her life as a work slave. First, she was a maid for a Nazi doctor and his wife. She was always hungry, and when the family was gone, she would steal a slice of bread. She would cut the bread, and she would take the loaf of bread and the slice, and she would go on one of those balconies. She would eat the slice of bread and hold the rest of the loaf up to the sun so it would dry and they wouldn't know that she had stolen a slice of bread. Then the Nazis sent her to work in a ball bearing factory in Schweinfurt.
We had a job to do on Schweinfurt. We had 400 tons of high explosives to deliver.
The factory was bombed constantly.
Those of us who remained alive ran to the Main River. We ran along the river. The water in the river was red with blood. On the banks lay corpses, often only parts of corpses.
Somehow Mama survived the bombing, and after the war she started rebuilding her life in a displaced persons camp. She married a Polish soldier, my father, Stanislaw Zabrowski. 75 years ago, this was nothing but grassy fields, and it had a camp, the LaGuardia DP camp. There were 1,900 Polish people and 700 kids, and I was one of them. This is where I was born in 1947. And this is where my mother's life got more complicated. She fell in love with my father's friend, a young Polish freedom fighter, Frank Ussarowski. Mama kept this picture of Christmas in the camp in 1947. Frank and me and herself and someone else who was cut out. Later, I learned it was my father. Eventually, my father and Frank sailed to Canada. Mama and I followed. We all wound up at Pier 21 in Halifax. Mama and I took the train 60 hours north here to the Timmins train station. Less than a year after we arrived, Mama bundled me up and ran away with Frank to Sudbury. I was 4 years old. I never saw my father again. I had no memory of what he looked like. I grew up thinking Frank was my father.
A unit, like an apartment. But again, it could be something that still there's several people boarding, but...
When I learned the truth, I began looking for my real father. I found a Stanley Zabrowski in a 1971 voters list in Kirkland Lake. I found out he lived in Kirkland Lake at the Chateau Nursing Home. Now that led me to his grave in a nearby cemetery. I don't know what to call you, so I'm going to call you Stan, okay? I hope that's all right. My father died at the Chateau in 1978. He was penniless. He was buried in an unmarked grave with no family to mourn him. He was just 64. The first thing I did was give my father a proper gravestone. Then I tracked down the family and I went to Poland to meet them. I found out my father had another grave in Poland, an honorary one. When he was in Canada, he had stopped writing to his family in the 1950s. They never knew what happened to him, but they never forgot him. They kept mementos, including a Christmas card he sent from Canada. And just to think that my father touched this.
You're welcome.
And finally, the mystery of what my father looked like was solved. A relative gave me the uncut version of the Weiden Christmas picture. After 70 years, I saw my father's face. My journey of discovery ended with a party with my father's family, the family I never knew I had. I understood how the war has stolen Mama's life. I understood the desperate things she did to survive. I understood how all of this shaped her life and mine. I recognized what had been lost, but I also celebrated what was found, and I was at peace with it all.